news of the week, and probably the biggest news of these last couple of days happened today. And it happened this morning, which is Atlanta United has now got a new head coach. They have found their replacement for Tata Martino, and it's certainly something or someone that not a lot of people were expected to replace Tata Martino at Atlanta United. But they announced that Frank de Boer is going to be the new manager of Atlanta United. De Boer, of course, his last job was at Crystal Palace, which I don't really need a lot of explanation of how that went. But he also have managed Inter Milan, and most impressively, he managed Ajax, and he was part of that Ajax team that produced a lot of good talent. So guys like Luis Suarez, Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, Christian Eriksen, all were part of that De Boer Ajax team that he, of course, was able to develop them and eventually sold them to bigger clubs. Now, there's definitely some mixed reaction in terms of this news. On one hand, I hear people say that, De Boer is an excellent coach because of the fact that he's able to develop good, talented player when he was at Ajax, which is what Atlanta United is all about. But on the other hand, going back to what I said about Palace and how he only lasted 6 games there, and it was probably the worst 6 games that any manager in the world has ever had. Not only he lost all 6 of those games, but he didn't even manage to get the team to score a single goal. Like, they went the first 6 games of that tenure that De Boer was in without scoring a single goal whatsoever, which obviously concerned a lot of Atlanta United fans about that. But having said that, when you look at this move, I still think this is definitely a good signing. I know Atlanta, before this, they were heavily linked with Schelotto, and eventually kind of talks broke down between Atlanta and Schelotto, and that Atlanta was no longer interested in him, and that Schelotto does have some issue with some of the players that Atlanta currently has. And, getting De Boer, it's kind of a bit of a risk of what happened last time when he was a manager of a club. But at the same time, I think with the talent that this Atlanta United has, and really the whole reason why it did not work for him when he was at Palace was that the way that he was trying to implement his system and implement his tactics into that Palace team, it just never worked. Like, it was doomed from the beginning. What De Boer liked to do is that he tends to like to be a possession kind of coach and like to go on the attacking side, which is exactly what Atlanta is. And when he was at Palace, he was trying to bring that same stuff, and obviously that does not work because, Palace, they don't have a lot of talented player on that team besides maybe Wilfred Zaha. And yeah, that obviously will never work with that Palace team, which is why it was a failure for him in the first place and why I said he was doomed from the beginning. And, with this kind of style that he used, I think he would do just as good of a job as what Tata Martino has done. And yeah, this is definitely a very kind of interesting news. And also because of the fact that now Atlanta has got De Boer, where exactly does Schelotto go next? And I'm assuming Schelotto probably will go to LA now because, he's been saying that he wants to come to MLS, and that Atlanta, we all thought that that was his prime destination. I mean, right after when Tata Martino left, there's already rumor and just almost confirmation that Schelotto will be their next head coach of Atlanta United. But now it's not the case, and now, I think the only job that Schelotto has left in MLS is that he's probably going to join the Galaxy, because the Galaxy, they've been having some issue with trying to get a new coach. First of all, they were trying to get Porter, but Porter decided to go to Columbus instead. And then they decided to maybe sign a 1-year contract with former Quakes manager Dominic Kittner, but Kittner said no. And then I also have heard recently that they tried to reach out Club America and trying to get Miguel Herrera, former El Tri manager, but it seemed like Herrera is not going to take that job because I don't know why he would want to leave Club America after they just won Liga MX, and the fact that he wants to stay there so that he can get another shot at that El Tri job. So that just left with LA the prime target that they need. And it's not like Scaleto has not been kind of rumored with the Galaxy. There's been some rumor that he was going to join the Galaxy, but now it feels like with this move, it's clear that LA is probably going to get Scaleto. I mean, if the Galaxy does not get Scaleto, and if their new GM De Closa is not going to get Scaleto, then yeah, I don't know what exactly they are thinking. And that's coming from a rival fan's perspective, all right? But yeah, either way, besides that big news, we also got other interesting news. So the New England Revolution signed for Juan Fernando Castillo from Independiente Medellin. I don't know much about this guy, but I'm assuming this is a move that they want to get in replacement for Kellen Rowe that they sold off to Sporting KC. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that's gonna go. And the forward position and on the attacking end, New England last year was okay on the attacking end, but as the year goes on, those guys that they were kind of rely on scoring goals weren't really the guy that I thought would just maintain with what they were in the first half of the season. I mean, New England last season, I feel like for the first half of the season, they clearly overachieved, and some of the attacking piece that they really rely on, like Fagundes, Pineda, and Bunbury, those guys are not going to be sustainable in terms of scoring the way that they did in the first half of the season. And maybe Casado might be kind of a backup plan for them, that maybe when Bunbury is not scoring goals, maybe Cascado will be their second option in terms of the goal scoring department. But speaking of strikers, Nashville has signed USL Golden Boot winner Cameron Lancaster from Louisville City FC. Now, this is kind of a USL kind of news because Nashville is still in the USL, but since I'm assuming they're going to keep this guy once Nashville come to MLS in 2020, that's why I put that on the board. And certainly this is a big signing for Nashville, considering the fact that this could definitely help them in terms of winning USL next season, knowing the fact that this is a team that is trying to build a very good squad in the USL and also a very good squad in MLS. And now the fact that they got the USL Golden Boot winner Cameron Lancaster, who comes from Louisville City, which is the team that won the USL Cup again for the second year in a row. This should be a very decent signing. And there's been a couple of guys that come out of Louisville has done very well in MLS. One name that comes to mind straight away that comes out of Louisville, Mark Anthony Kaye. He's done very good with LAFC up until when he had that season-ending leg injury. But moving on, Minnesota has finally found their third TP and have signed their third DP just this week. They decided to sign Slovakia midfielder Jan Grosses, I think that's how you pronounce. And they of course signed him as the third DP. And certainly I think this is a really smart move for Minnesota. And I think this is kind of a move that Loons fans have been asking the front office to make, because it's clear that Minnesota, they're pretty stacked going forward, but that midfield and defense is an absolute sideshow. I mean, that midfield is just a gaping hole for opposition team to basically cut through them and go on the attack. And the defense, yeah, they give up 70 goals again this season. So you know how that defense will go well. And I think with him in this team, and certainly with him, I forgot to mention that he is also a Slovakia international and that he came from FC Copenhagen, a team that is one of the top team in Danish football and a team that have played in the Champions League before. This will definitely be a very good signing and really stabilize that midfield that Minnesota has, which has been really shambolic in their first 2 seasons in MLS. Speaking of signing, we got a couple more signing in the re-entry draft. So the re-entry draft is now into stage 2, and there are 2 notable players that got picked up by 2 different teams. So you got Tommy McNamara got picked up by the Houston Dynamo from NYCFC. I think this is definitely a good signing for the Dynamo because McNamara was really good with NYCFC in that midfield. And then Matt Lamson, of course, got picked up by the Galaxy. So I'm assuming now there's going to be a competition in terms of the goalkeeping position for the Galaxy. Now Bingham, of course, will have to really step up to his game because Lamson, although he was, I would say he was okay at Minnesota. He wasn't spectacular when he was with the Loons, but he's certainly a guy that could definitely step in there and be a decent kind of goalkeeper in MLS. And certainly with what David Bingham had last year, which was very mediocre kind of year that he has, the Galaxy knew that they had to have a backup plan, and this is potentially is the backup plan that they are going to get. But moving on, Christian Roldan has signed a contract extension for 5 years worth $4 million. So Christian Roldan, there's been a lot of talks of the fact that when is he gonna get his contract extension? The Sounders have already extended Jordan Morris in a big contract, and Roldan is definitely one of the most important player for this Sounders team. And when you look at that Portland versus Seattle 2-legged affair, you saw how big that's the Sounders missed Roldan for that second leg. If Roldan was in that second leg, then the Sounders might have had a chance to move on into the conference final. So because they know how important he is, they need to lock him up in a contract, and it's certainly a very big contract. I mean, $4 million for 5 years, and this is not even a DP level kind of contract. So that means he's going to be earning roughly about 800 or 900K per year. That is a really high amount of salary for a guy that is not considered a DP spot. So yeah, speaking of the Sounders, moving on, the Sounders also are report that they are going to get Chicago Fire defender Jonathan Campbell, and this certainly is a move for the Sounders for the depth in that back line. Certainly last year, once Chad Marshall went down, they had to rely on Roman Torres, and even though Roman Torres was pretty decent in terms of stepping in for Chad Marshall, Torres is now a year older, and he is getting to a point where, I don't think Torres is a guy that you want to use as a player that could come in for Chad Marshall. And we'll see if Campbell does get some game time. Next season we still don't know if Chad Marshall is gonna go back to this team. Chad Marshall just underwent surgery on his leg that he suffered back in that first leg of the Western Conference semifinal, and we don't know if that leg that he had surgery on will recover in time for the beginning of the season. So we could be seeing Jonathan Campbell stepping in to that Sounders team instead of Roman Torres, and it will probably be just Campbell and Kim Ki-hee in that back line for the Sounders. The Houston Dynamo report to have that they are going to get Palmeiro center back Aljat Strona. Again, I do apologize if I completely butcher that name, but certainly this looked like a piece that they they are getting for depth, because, you know, the Dynamo, they have lost a couple of pieces in that defensive and due to either retirement or the expansion draft. So this could be potentially a player that they can add in terms of the depth piece, or maybe in terms of playing starting in that team. You know, Palmeiro is definitely a team that is very decent in Serie A, and to get his service, you know, certainly I think that could be a very good thing for the Dynamo. And then finally, Michael Parkhurst have confirmed that he will be back at Atlanta. So Atlanta did offer him a new contract for 2019, and you know, recently there's been a lot of rumor that Parkhurst was going to leave Atlanta and probably either retire or maybe join another team. But Atlanta is going to be bringing him back for another year. And yeah, that is pretty much it for news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all of these news? Certainly, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the news that Frank de Boer is now the new manager of Atlanta United. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.